The stars stretched endlessly across the dark sky, each one a tiny spark in the vast silence of space. Among them, a small human vessel, the Aurora, glided quietly, its engines humming a steady rhythm. Captain Elias Varn stood on the bridge, gazing at the endless expanse. His hands rested lightly on the railing, but his mind was far from relaxed. He had learned, in his years exploring the uncharted regions of the galaxy, that silence often hid danger. A sudden alarm blared, cutting through the quiet hum. Red lights flashed across the bridge. "Captain, multiple distress signals coming from the culinary system," said Lieutenant Mara-Chen, her voice steady but tense. The signals were fragmented, but the urgency was clear. The Selenari were a peaceful alien species, renowned for their knowledge and diplomacy. A distress call from them was never ordinary. Elias moved to the console, studying the signals. "Send a full scan of the area. I want every ship, every weapon signature," he ordered. He could see the faint outlines of ships under attack in the holo display. Their shapes were strange, angular, almost insect-like, and they moved with coordinated aggression. "Those are not Selenari ships," Elias muttered. He could feel the tension in the bridge. Something or someone was attacking them. The Selenari fleet was overwhelmed. Elias had seen countless battles in his career, but there was something different about this one. The attackers weren't just after territory, they were hunting. And the crown jewel of the Selenari fleet, their queen, was in danger. "Captain, one of the signals stronger than the others. It's different," Mara said, pointing to a single, pulsing wave. Elias leaned closer. The signal carried a weight that no ordinary distress call could have. He recognized it instinctively, the call of a leader, a mind trying to reach across space, hoping for rescue. Without hesitation, Elias made his decision. "Prepare for immediate jump. We're going in." The crew moved quickly, following the practiced rhythm of seasoned explorers. The Aurora shifted, lights flickering as it pushed past the limits of known navigation routes. Outside, the void seemed endless, but Elias's eyes never left the screens. He could see the Selenari ships, barely holding against the swarm of attackers. And there, at the center of the chaos, was the alien queen. She was magnificent, more than Elias had imagined. Her body was tall and lithe, covered in shimmering plates that reflected the faint starlight. Her eyes glowed softly, intelligent and commanding, filled with both fear and defiance. She was cornered, and every second counted. "Captain," Mara said, her voice tight, "this is madness. Their weapons are more advanced than anything we've faced. If we jump in now, we could lose the Aurora." Elias turned to her, his expression calm but firm. "Lieutenant, if we wait, she dies. And if she dies, the galaxy loses more than just a leader. We cannot let fear decide our actions." The jump was made. The Aurora tore through space and emerged above the battlefield. The swarm of attackers surrounded the Selenari ships like a storm, their movement precise and deadly. Elias's crew prepared weapons and shields, but he had a plan beyond raw firepower. "Target their coordination signals," he said. "Disrupt them, don't destroy. If we scatter them, the Selenari will have a chance." The ship's systems hummed as pulses shot out, intercepting and scrambling the attackers' communication channels. The swarm wavered, confusion spreading. Some ships collided. Others retreated slightly, unsure of what had happened. Elias seized the opportunity, prepared the boarding shuttle. "I'm going in," he said, his voice low but resolute. Mara's eyes widened. "Captain, you can't." "I can," he interrupted. "And I will. The Queen's life is worth it." The shuttle cut through the chaos, fast and small, like a dart in the darkness. Elias piloted it personally, weaving through debris and fire. Every second brought him closer to the Queen, and every second counted. When he finally reached her ship, he saw the attackers closing in again. The Queen's own shields were failing. Elias fired a pulse from the shuttle, disabling a section of the attackers' ships. Then he used the shuttle's magnetic grapples to latch onto the Queen's ship. Alarms blared as he breached the hull, entering the Queen's chamber. She turned to him, startled, yet composed. Her voice was soft but commanding. "Who dares enter my ship?" "I'm Captain Elias Varn of the human ship Aurora," he said, bowing slightly in respect. "I came to help." The Queen's eyes narrowed, but she saw the truth in his gaze. He was not there for conquest or gain. He was there to save her. Without another word, she followed him, letting Elias guide her to the shuttle. The return was not easy. The attackers were relentless. Elias maneuvered the shuttle with skill, dodging blasts that could tear through metal like paper. Mara's voice came through the comm, steady and reassuring. "Shields holding at 60%. You can make it, Captain. You always do." Finally, the shuttle emerged from the battlefield, and the Aurora's docking bay opened to receive them. Elias piloted with precision, landing the shuttle safely. The crew rushed forward, assisting the Queen from the shuttle. She stood tall, scanning the human crew, her eyes finally resting on Elias. "You risked everything for me," she said quietly. "Why?" Elias looked at her with a faint smile. "Because some things are worth it. Because humans. We fight for life, for hope. I couldn't stand by and watch you die." The Queen studied him for a long moment, her expression unreadable. Then she nodded, a gesture of respect and understanding. In that moment, an unspoken bond formed a connection that crossed species, cultures, and galaxies. The war was not over, but the Queen was safe. And for the first time, Elias allowed himself a deep breath. The stars outside seemed to shine a little brighter, as if acknowledging the courage and determination of one human in a vast and dangerous universe. But even in victory, Elias knew something troubling. The attackers would not forget this encounter. And the galaxy, in all its immensity, had a way of remembering those who dared to change its course. The Queen spoke again, her voice softer now. "Captain Varn, you have saved me, yet I feel this is only the beginning." Elias nodded, understanding. "Then we will face what comes, together, one step at a time." For now, the Aurora drifted in the quiet of space, carrying the rescued Queen and her human savior. The stars watched silently, waiting for the next move in a galaxy that had just witnessed the extraordinary courage of one human and the start of a story that would echo across worlds. And somewhere deep in his mind, Elias wondered, what adventures awaited beyond this rescue, and how far humans could truly reach when they refused to stand down in the face of danger. 5 years had passed since Captain Elias Varn had rescued the alien Queen from the swarm of ruthless attackers. In that time, the galaxy had changed. Star systems once peaceful now trembled under the shadow of the warlord species that had sought to dominate the Selenary. Many planets had fallen, their cities destroyed, and countless beings had fled to safe zones or remote corners of space. The Queen's people, though resilient, had not fully recovered. Their fleets were smaller, their technology scattered, and their hope fragile. Yet, the legend of the human who had saved their Queen lingered like a bright flame in the darkness. Tales spread quietly through alien channels, whispers of a human captain with courage beyond measure, who had vanished soon after the rescue. Some said he had died in the void, swallowed by the vastness of space. Others claimed he had traveled to forbidden sectors to master unknown powers. Regardless of the rumors, one truth remained. The galaxy had not seen the last of Elias Varn. The alien Queen, Kay Lyra, now moved through her reconstructed capital ship, the Luminaris, with a heavy sense of responsibility. She had rebuilt alliances where she could, aided refugees, and defended her people from further attacks. But a deep worry had grown inside her, a worry that human courage had been the true key to survival. And without it, her species could falter. She stood on her observation deck, staring at a distant nebula that glowed violet and gold. "Elias," she whispered to herself, "if you are alive, we need you." Her voice carried a mixture of hope and longing, for she had never met another being like him. There had been other allies, other commanders, but none had the brilliance, the boldness, or the unpredictability that humans seemed to possess. Meanwhile, far from the Selenary systems, Elias had indeed survived. The 5 years he had spent away were a mystery to most. He had traveled through hidden sectors, mapping uncharted space, and observing alien civilizations. During that time, he had acquired knowledge alien languages, ancient technologies, and strategies long forgotten. He had seen worlds governed by fear and others flourishing on cooperation and ingenuity. Yet, despite all he had learned, Elias remained alone. He lived aboard a small ship, far smaller than the Aurora, but fast and adaptable. He rarely communicated with anyone, preferring the quiet of space to the politics and conflicts of the galaxy. But even in isolation, he never forgot the Queen, the memory of her calm intelligence, the strength in her voice, and the urgency of that rescue mission lingered like a constant echo in his mind. The galaxy itself seemed to conspire to remind him of unfinished duties. A signal reached him one quiet evening, faint but unmistakable. It was not a distress call. It was more personal, almost like a message carried across the stars. He paused, fingers hovering over the console. The signal carried knowledge and encoded plea from Lyra herself. Though she did not know he would receive it, Elias smiled faintly. "So, it begins again," he murmured. He understood the signal meant that the warlord species was gaining strength again. Their fleets were expanding faster than before, and the Selenary still had vulnerable systems. The galaxy's balance was fragile, and the Queen's people alone might not survive another wave of attacks. Meanwhile, Lyra continued her work to prepare her fleet. She organized drills, trained young commanders, and reinforced weak star systems. Every decision was critical. Every lost minute could mean another planet lost to the warlord species. Yet, she could not shake the feeling that a force beyond her control, someone extraordinary, was missing. A human had once changed everything. Perhaps only he could do so again. "Captain Lyra," an aide said, interrupting her thoughts. "There is a new intelligence report. The warlord fleets are moving faster than predicted. They are testing the outer systems for weaknesses." Lyra's eyes narrowed. "Then we cannot wait," she said firmly. "We must prepare for a strike. But first, send the coordinates to the sectors Elias once traveled. If he is alive, he will find this message." The Queen's decision was unusual. Aliens did not often seek humans for strategy. They were unpredictable, chaotic even. Yet she had learned that sometimes unpredictability could be a strength. Elias had shown this once, and she trusted that he could show it again. As the message was transmitted, Elias aboard his small ship received it instantly. The encrypted signal was unique, familiar. He decoded it quickly, recognizing the Queen's signature. The patterns were unmistakable, though clever enough to confuse most others. His pulse quickened as he read the coordinates and the plea embedded in the message. "We need you." Elias leaned back in his chair. He had spent 5 years avoiding attachment, avoiding the responsibility that came with intervention. And yet, he could not ignore the call. Humanity had always risen in times of challenge, adapting to threats and taking bold action where others hesitated. This was no different. "I suppose the galaxy isn't done with me yet," he said quietly. He set a course for the Selenary systems, knowing that this journey would be far more dangerous than the last. The warlord species had grown stronger, more cunning, and less predictable. But Elias trusted his skills, his instincts, and the ingenuity that defined humanity. As the Luminaris drifted closer to the sectors under threat, Lyra watched the stars for any sign of human intervention. Rumors of Elias's survival had already spread through the Selenary fleets, boosting morale in subtle ways. The soldiers and commanders believed that if the human returned, the tides could turn. Hope, once fragile, began to rekindle in hearts that had grown weary of fear. Meanwhile, Elias's ship moved silently through the dark corridors of space, avoiding patrols and automated detection systems. His knowledge of alien technology allowed him to bypass sensors, mask his presence, and travel where most humans could not survive. Yet the thrill of danger did not frighten him. If anything, it reminded him why humans had always thrived. They did not just react to threats. They faced them, learned from them, and grew stronger. Finally, after days of travel, he arrived at the edge of the Selenary system. The outer colonies were under attack. The warlord species tested defenses, striking lightly but frequently, trying to find weakness. Elias observed quietly from a safe distance, analyzing their patterns. His mind worked like a machine, predicting movements, calculating outcomes. and planning strategies that only a human mind adaptable, inventive, and unafraid could conceive. Kalira, aboard the Luminaris, was unaware that Elias had already arrived in orbit. Yet the pull of human ingenuity was undeniable. She felt a subtle shift in the energy of her fleet of hope that had been absent for years. Somewhere in the darkness above the planets, a human waited, preparing to tip the balance once again, and Elias, looking down at the systems in peril, smiled faintly. "It's time," he said. "Time to remind the galaxy why humans mattered. Time to show that courage, intelligence, and heart could change the course of history not through brute force, but through careful, bold action." The galaxy had grown dark, but in that darkness, one human flame could shine brighter than all the stars combined. And somewhere, far above the battles that were yet to come, Kalira watched the nebulae shift, unaware that her greatest ally, the human, who had once saved her life, was already preparing for the impossible. The stage was set. 5 years of silence, strategy, and survival would soon collide with destiny. The galaxy trembled, but hope, fragile yet fierce, had returned. The stars stretched endlessly before Elias Varn as he piloted his small, sleek vessel toward the heart of the Selenary system. The 5 years away had changed him, though the essence of humanity within him remained: curiosity, courage, and the stubborn drive to act when others hesitated. His eyes, sharp and calculating, scanned the battlefield ahead. The warlord species had grown stronger, their fleets larger and more aggressive. But Elias had learned to read patterns, anticipate moves, and strike where least expected. The Selenary capital, once peaceful and radiant, now shone under a tense, uneasy light. Its ships patrolled carefully, alert to the enemy's every movement. The queen, Kalira, was aboard the Luminaris, commanding her forces with precision and caution. Yet a quiet sense of uncertainty had begun to seep among her officers. The human who had once changed the tide of their first encounter was missing. Without him, victories felt fragile, as if one wrong decision could collapse their defenses entirely. Suddenly, a signal flashed on the Luminaris' long-range sensors. It was faint at first, barely more than a whisper, but unmistakable. An unfamiliar human signature. The Queen's advisors noticed it immediately, and the room grew tense. Kalira stepped forward, her eyes narrowing at the console. "Identify the ship," she commanded. Her voice steady but sharp. "Unknown, Captain," reported the officer. "It's small, but highly advanced. The energy patterns are." Human Kalira's heart skipped a beat. Could it be? Could the human who had saved her and then vanished 5 years ago really have returned? She did not allow herself hope too quickly. The warlord species could be testing them, sending decoys to mislead the fleet. But then the signal changed. A message appeared, short and precise. "Queen Kalira, I am here. Trust me." The Queen's eyes widened. Only one human could send a message with such clarity, such confidence. Without hesitation, she ordered her ship to intercept the signal. Meanwhile, Elias guided his vessel carefully, cloaked from the majority of sensors. He had learned much in the past 5 years about alien technology, tactics, and survival. His ship was small, almost invisible to most detection systems, but it was fast, adaptable, and deadly if necessary. Yet he had no intention of fighting the Selenary. His mission was to aid, not dominate. As he approached the Selenary fleet, he observed their formations and strategies, quietly analyzing weaknesses without disturbing them. His mind worked in patterns that were familiar to him: anticipate, adapt, and act decisively. The warlord species had not changed their approach much in 5 years, which made them predictable to someone who had learned to read the subtle cues of galactic warfare. At last, Elias revealed himself. His ship emerged from the shadow of a nearby asteroid cluster, sleek and shining under the distant light of a dying star. The Selenary fleet reacted immediately, raising shields and preparing for defense. Kalira's voice rang through the communications channels. "Human, identify yourself immediately." Elias's calm, steady voice answered, "I'm Captain Elias Varn. I come as an ally." The tension in the fleet did not dissipate instantly. Some officers murmured nervously. Humans were unpredictable. But the queen knew his voice, and her instincts told her it was him. Slowly, the fleet relaxed its stance. The human who had once risked everything to save their queen had returned. Kaelira ordered the docking bay to open, preparing to bring Elias aboard the Luminaris. When he stepped onto the ship, 5 years of absence seemed to vanish instantly. He was taller now, his posture straighter, and there was a quiet confidence in his eyes that commanded attention. His uniform was simple, practical, and marked with subtle badges that hinted at the challenges he had faced and the knowledge he had gained in those 5 years. "You've changed," Kaelira said. Observing him closely, Elias smiled faintly. "Space is a way of changing all who travel it, but I am still human, and I am still here to help." The queen studied him, noticing subtle enhancements to his ship, modifications to his equipment, and the calm decisiveness in his movements. He had clearly spent these years preparing, learning, and growing. He had faced dangers that few could imagine, yet he had returned to her proof of human determination and loyalty. "We have much to discuss," Kaelira said. "The warlord fleets are expanding. Systems we once protected are under siege. Your return, it may be the only chance we have to turn the tide." Elias nodded. "I have observed their movements. I have learned their tactics. We can defeat them, but we must act quickly, and we must act with precision. The humans always adapt. I will show you how." Kaelira's advisors exchanged nervous glances. The queen's decision to trust a human, unpredictable as he was, could lead to disaster. Yet, the evidence of his previous success could not be ignored. Humans were often reckless, yet brilliant. Elias's presence brought hope a chance to inspire and lead not through fear or domination, but through courage and creativity. Elias moved to a tactical display, tracing the positions of the warlord fleets across the system. "Their strength lies in coordination," he explained. "They attack in waves, forcing defenders to split their attention. They rely on predictable patterns. But humans, we do not always follow patterns. We improvise, we adapt, and sometimes we win by doing what no one expects." Kaelira listened, fascinated. His confidence was not arrogance. It was grounded in experience and logic. "Then what is our first move?" she asked. Elias pointed to a cluster of distant planets. "We strike where they believe we are weakest. Their scouts avoid this sector, thinking it unimportant. We can turn it into a trap." He outlined a plan that was both simple and brilliant: minimal risk to Selenary ships, maximum confusion for the enemy. The officers murmured in disbelief. The humans' ways were always unconventional, yet the more they listened, the more sense it made. "We strike tonight," Elias said. "When they expect us elsewhere, they will not anticipate our approach, and that is when we will gain the advantage." As preparations began, Kaelira observed him quietly. This human had returned not for fame or power, but for a purpose greater than himself. The galaxy needed courage and ingenuity, qualities humans seemed to possess in abundance. The evening descended on the Selenary fleet, and the stars outside twinkled as if aware that change was coming. Small ships moved silently under Elias's guidance, positioning themselves strategically. Every move was deliberate, calculated, yet flexible enough to adapt if the enemy reacted unpredictably. Kaelira could not stop herself from feeling a mix of awe and anticipation. Humans had always been underestimated by most alien civilizations, yet they achieved extraordinary results. She had seen it firsthand, and now she would see it again. Hours passed. The tension on the Luminaris was palpable. Finally, the warlord fleet made its move, sending waves of ships toward what they thought was the Selenary weak point. Elias's plan sprang into action. The Selenary ships under his direction maneuvered with precision, striking swiftly and confusing the attackers. Explosions lit the darkness of space. Yet the human-led forces remained intact, their movements almost poetic in their efficiency. The warlord ships faltered, disoriented by tactics they could not anticipate. Kaelira watched, astonished. "Humans, they do not fight like others," she whispered. "They think differently. They inspire differently." Elias noticed her gaze and nodded slightly. Courage can be contagious. Hope can be stronger than fear. By the time the battle ended, the warlord fleet had retreated, suffering losses it had not expected. The Selenary fleet remained intact, victorious yet amazed. Elias had returned not only as a human, but as a symbol of ingenuity, bravery, and resilience. After the battle, Kaelira approached him. "You have returned, and yet you have changed. You have grown stronger in ways we cannot fully understand." Elias smiled faintly, his eyes reflecting the stars outside. "Space changes us. Experience changes us. But some things do not change. Humans value life, courage, and hope. That is why I returned. That is why I fight." The queen looked at him, gratitude and respect filling her gaze. "Then, Captain Elias Varn, together, we will face the warlord threat. And perhaps, together, we can restore balance to the galaxy." Elias nodded, quietly determined. "Together, we will show the galaxy what humans and their allies are capable of." And so, the stage was set for the next chapter of this galactic struggle. The human who had disappeared for 5 years had returned, not as a mere fighter, but as a force of strategy, courage, and inspiration. The Selenary fleet now had hope once more, and the galaxy would soon witness the full extent of human ingenuity and the extraordinary partnership between a human and the alien queen. The galaxy was on edge. News of the human captain's return had spread quietly but swiftly through the Selenary fleet. Elias Varn, the one who had vanished for 5 years, now stood at the center of a delicate alliance. Around him, alien commanders whispered and speculated, some suspicious of his unconventional methods, others curious and intrigued. Yet Kaelira, the alien queen, had no doubt humans, especially Elias, were capable of inspiring change where others failed. The warlord species had grown bolder. Their fleets moved with confidence, striking vulnerable colonies and testing the strength of Selenary defenses. They assumed the human was gone forever, unaware that he was already planning a counterattack. Elias had studied their patterns during his return journey and had discovered a weakness. They had not noticed an over-reliance on rigid formations and predictable assault strategies. "Captain Varn," Kaelira said as she stood beside him on the bridge of the Luminaris, "how do we make them pay for all they have destroyed? How do we ensure that the Selenary survive?" Elias studied the holographic map of the system, tracing the warlord fleet's routes with his fingers. "We don't meet them head-on," he said calmly. "We make them think they are in control. Then we strike where they are weakest. The Selenary are faster and more agile than they know. If we coordinate with speed and unpredictability, we can turn their strength into weakness." A group of alien commanders exchanged uneasy glances. Humans were always unpredictable. They did not follow the rules of warfare that most species adhered to. Yet Kaelira's confidence in Elias silenced the doubts. "We will need all available fleets," Kaelira said, turning to the advisors. "Every ship, every captain must follow the human strategy, even the smaller colonies?" One commander asked, hesitant. Elias nodded. "Especially the smaller colonies. They can act as decoys, pulling the enemy into traps. We will use what they expect against them. Deception and speed will be our greatest weapons." Preparations began immediately. The Selenary fleet was reorganized under Elias's guidance, training in ways that were unusual but highly effective. He introduced strategies based on human principles, improvisation, adaptive maneuvers, and morale-driven leadership. The aliens were amazed to see how simple adjustments in positioning and timing could turn disadvantage into opportunity. "Humans are strange," one Selenary officer whispered to another. "They do not fight like us. They inspire, rather than control." Elias overheard the comment and smiled faintly. Inspiration was exactly what the galaxy needed. He did not rely solely on technology or numbers. Humans thrive when hope, courage, and clever thinking combined. Over the next several days, the Selenary and human-led alliance moved quietly through space, observing the warlord species. Elias instructed small reconnaissance teams to act independently, then brought their reports together to identify patterns. Every move of the enemy was calculated, yet subtly flawed. Finally, Elias spoke. "Tomorrow, we act. The enemy will expect an attack on the front lines. We will use that expectation to strike from behind, cutting off their reinforcements and leaving them vulnerable. Kalyra studied him closely. And you are certain this will succeed? Elias's eyes met hers, steady and unwavering. In war, nothing is certain, but this plan gives us the advantage. If we act together, we can win with minimal loss. Night fell across the Selenary fleet as preparations continued. The quiet of space seemed almost peaceful, yet the tension was thick. The fleet was ready, but the warlord species remained unaware of the danger approaching from the shadows. When the battle began, it started exactly as Elias predicted. The warlord fleet struck what they believed to be the main Selenary force. The frontline ships engaged in a fierce but controlled skirmish, believing they had the advantage. Meanwhile, Elias directed smaller groups to flank from unexpected positions, attacking supply lines, communication channels, and reinforcements. The warlord commanders were caught off guard. They had expected a standard battle, predictable and manageable. Yet the human-led tactics were fluid and clever. Ships that were thought safe were suddenly surrounded. Reinforcements were delayed, cut off by precise maneuvers that no rigid strategy could anticipate. Kalyra watched in amazement as Elias orchestrated the fleet. His style was different from any she had seen in 5 decades of leadership. He did not rely on intimidation or raw power. Instead, he used creativity, timing, and the courage of every individual ship to turn the tide. Humans, Kalyra whispered, almost to herself. They fight with heart as well as mind. Elias's voice came over the comm. Focus on coordination and speed. Trust your instincts. Do not underestimate what humans and allies can achieve when we work together. The Selenary officers followed his orders, initially unsure, but gradually realizing the brilliance of the approach. Small ships darted in and out of enemy lines, larger ships struck precisely where needed, and the warlord fleet began to falter. Confusion spread among their ranks as humans and aliens executed a synchronized plan. The warlord species could not comprehend. Hours passed. The battle raged through the void of space, bright flashes of energy illuminating the darkness. The warlord species, once confident in their strength, now struggled to maintain formation. The human-led tactics were too unpredictable, too clever, and too fast, finally. As the last wave of enemy reinforcements faltered, Elias directed a final coordinated strike. Small fleets attacked simultaneously from multiple directions, cutting off escape routes and overwhelming isolated enemy ships. The warlord fleet began to retreat, suffering losses far greater than anticipated. Victory belonged to the Selenary and their human ally. The fleet cheered, not just for survival, but for the brilliance of the strategy that had saved them. Kalyra turned to Elias, her expression a mixture of relief and admiration. "You have done more than save us," she said softly. "You have given us hope and the knowledge that we can win even against overwhelming odds." Elias shook his head slightly. "I only guided. The courage came from you, Queen Kalyra, and from every individual in this fleet. Humans are good at improvising, but without trust and determination, even the best plans fail." The Queen studied him, realizing that the human's return had changed everything. He was not just a fighter or a strategist. He was an inspiration, a symbol of what humanity could achieve even in a galaxy filled with uncertainty and danger. In the following days, the alliance solidified. Systems previously under threat were reinforced, and colonies began to rebuild. The warlord species, though not entirely defeated, had learned to fear the unexpected brilliance of a human ally. Elias and Kalyra spent hours planning the next moves, analyzing intelligence, and preparing for the inevitable counterattacks. Yet their bond, formed in the crucible of battle and forged by mutual respect, was growing stronger. Together, human ingenuity and alien wisdom created a new type of alliance, one that combined courage, strategy, and hope in a way the galaxy had never seen. One evening, Kalyra observed Elias working at the tactical display, quietly adjusting plans and preparing contingencies. She could not help but admire him, not just for his skills, but for his steadfastness, his calm under pressure, and the way he inspired others to rise above fear. "Captain Varn," she said softly, Stepping beside him, "You have changed the galaxy with your return. But tell me, what drove you to come back?" Elias paused, his gaze on the holographic stars of the map. "I have seen much in the past 5 years. I have learned that courage, hope, and intelligence can overcome even the greatest threats. And I remembered you and your people. If humans can make a difference, then we should. That is why I returned." Kaelira nodded slowly, understanding the depth of his words. Humans were unpredictable, yes, but they were also capable of incredible courage and creativity. Elias had not returned for glory. He had returned because he knew that life, in all its forms, was worth fighting for. The stars outside seemed to shine brighter that night, as if witnessing the birth of a new era, one in which humans and aliens could stand together, face overwhelming odds, and inspire hope across the galaxy. Elias's plan had worked, but he knew this was only the beginning. The warlord species would return, stronger and more determined. Yet now, the Selenary had a human at their side, a captain who combined bravery, intelligence, and innovation in a way no other species could. And as he looked out at the expanse of stars, Elias felt a quiet confidence. Humans were not the strongest species in the galaxy, but they were capable of changing it in ways that no one could predict. And that was enough. The alliance between human ingenuity and Selenary wisdom had begun, and the galaxy would never be the same again. The stars above the Selenary capital burned like distant fires, but Captain Elias Varn hardly noticed. His focus was entirely on the mission ahead. The warlord species had grown desperate after repeated defeats. Their fleets, though battered, were reorganizing for one final assault. This time, their goal was total domination and attack so large and coordinated that it could destroy the Selenary entirely. Elias stood on the bridge of his ship, the Aurora II, a newly outfitted vessel designed for both speed and precision. Beside him, Kaelira, the alien queen, observed the holographic map of the battlefield. The queen had grown stronger during his absence, mastering her own fleet with skill and determination. Yet even she understood the gravity of the situation. "We cannot underestimate them," Kaelira said quietly, her gaze fixed on the projected enemy formations. "This is the largest attack they have ever launched." Elias nodded, his hands lightly resting on the console. "And yet, they will make mistakes. They always do when they underestimate courage and adaptability." He glanced at her, his expression calm, yet filled with quiet determination. "This time, we strike not just to defend, but to show them that the galaxy will never be conquered through fear alone." The fleet prepared for battle. Selenary ships, once nervous and hesitant, moved with renewed confidence under Elias's guidance. Small human-led squadrons flanked the enemy positions, while larger Selenary cruisers formed intricate patterns designed to confuse and divide the warlord forces. Every move was precise, yet flexible, adaptable to whatever the enemy attempted. Elias and Kaelira had worked closely for weeks, forming a strategy that combined human ingenuity with alien wisdom. They had learned to anticipate each other's actions, communicating with subtle gestures and unspoken understanding. In many ways, they had become more than allies. They were the heart of the fleet's resolve. The warlord fleet approached, massive and menacing, their angular ships casting long shadows across the void. Their leaders were confident, believing that sheer numbers and firepower would overwhelm the defenders. Yet Elias and Kaelira had seen the cracks in their armor, the flaws in their coordination, and the hesitation that came from underestimating those they considered weaker. The first volley of energy blasts lit the darkness. Explosions illuminated the battlefield, each one a reminder of the stakes. The warlord ships attacked the main Selenary force, just as Elias had anticipated. But this time, the humans and their allies were ready. Now, Elias commanded, his voice steady, yet filled with urgency. From multiple directions, the human-led squad struck. Small, fast ships darted through gaps in the enemy formation, disabling shields, cutting communication lines, and drawing attention away from the main fleet. The Selenary cruisers, guided by Kaelira's commands, moved like a single organism, responding to every threat with precision. The warlord species faltered, They had expected a simple battle, but what they faced was coordination unlike anything they had experienced. Every maneuver Elias had taught, every unconventional tactic, left them confused and disoriented. They tried to regroup, but human ingenuity and alien adaptability proved too much. Elias watched the battle unfold, his eyes scanning for openings. "Target their supply lines," he said. "We need to isolate their ships and prevent reinforcement. Move quickly." The fleet executed his commands flawlessly. Supply ships and reinforcements were cut off, leaving the enemy in disarray. One by one, the warlord vessels fell or retreated, unable to withstand the combined forces of human strategy and selenary courage. Kaelira's voice rang across the comm, clear and commanding. "All ships, focus on the rear formations. Do not allow them to regroup. The galaxy will not bow to fear." Elias smiled faintly. "That's it. Keep pushing." His mind was sharp, calculating every move, predicting the enemy's reactions before they even occurred. Yet there was more than calculation here, there was inspiration. Humans fought not only with strategy, but with hope, courage, and the belief that even impossible odds could be overcome. Hours passed, though it felt like minutes in the intensity of battle. The warlord fleet, once confident, now scattered into chaos. Ships retreated through damaged routes, many never to return. The selenary fleet, guided by human insight and alien precision, emerged victorious. As the last of the enemy fled, the battlefield fell silent. The stars returned to their quiet brilliance, and the glow of damaged ships dimmed slowly. The selenary fleet celebrated. Yet the victory felt more profound than mere triumph. It was the affirmation of courage, unity, and the unexpected strength of an unlikely alliance. Kaelira turned to Elias, her eyes wide with admiration. "You have done it again, Captain. Not through brute force, but through wisdom, bravery, and trust. You have reminded us why humans matter in this galaxy." Elias shook his head slightly. "We did it together. Courage is not limited to one species. You led your fleet with skill, and your people trusted each other. I only guided. That is all humans can do. We inspire. We adapt. We act." The Queen smiled softly. For 5 years, she had wondered where he had gone, why he disappeared, and what lessons he had learned. Now, standing before her once more, she saw not only the human who had saved her life, but a symbol of the potential humanity offered. Courage, intelligence, and the capacity to inspire hope across worlds. "Captain Varn," she said, her voice calm yet filled with reverence, "I owe you more than words can express. You risked everything to return, to fight for life when others thought it lost. You have not only saved my people, but the very spirit of this galaxy." Elias smiled faintly, a quiet humility in his gaze. "I did what I had to. Humans have always reached for the impossible, faced challenges, and refused to give up. That is all I know how to do." The Queen stepped closer, her presence commanding yet gentle. "Then, Elias, know this. You stand before more than a grateful ally. You stand before a friend, a witness to the future we can build together. The galaxy is wide, dangerous, and full of uncertainty, but with courage, hope, and determination, we can overcome anything." Elias's eyes reflected the stars outside. "The galaxy is large, yes, but humans, like all who fight for what is right, can reach further than anyone expects." The two stood together, human and alien, gazing at the quiet aftermath of the battle. Ships drifted, repairs began, and the stars seemed to watch in silent approval. For the first time in 5 years, Elias felt a profound sense of belonging. He had returned not as a wanderer, not as a lone hero, but as a catalyst for unity and hope. Kaelira studied him, realizing that his presence was more than tactical brilliance, it was inspiration itself. The selenary would rebuild, stronger and more confident, knowing that courage and intelligence could face even the most overwhelming threat. Elias spoke quietly, almost to himself. 5 years, gone, yet it feels like no time has passed. The galaxy never forgets those who dared to act, who refused to surrender to fear. Humans are small in number, but we have a way of leaving marks that matter. The Queen's gaze softened. "And now, you leave a mark on my people and Ami. We will remember this always. Elias Farn. We will remember what humans can do, how they can inspire, lead, and protect even when hope seems lost. The stars above twinkled silently, endless witnesses to the courage of one human and the bond he had forged with an alien queen. The galaxy had changed, but so had Elias. He was no longer merely the rescuer who vanished into the void. He was a symbol, proof that humanity, in all its unpredictability, ingenuity, and heart, could alter the course of worlds. The battle was over, but the story was far from finished. The warlord species had been defeated this time, yet new challenges would always arise. Yet Elias and K-Lyra now stood ready, united by trust, courage, and the knowledge that together, humans and aliens could face whatever came next. The Queen reached out, touching Elias's arm in a gesture of respect and gratitude. "You stand before me again," she said softly, "and I see not just a rescuer, but a partner, a strategist, and a symbol of hope. You have returned when the galaxy needed you most." Elias looked at her, a faint smile on his face. "And I will stay for as long as I am needed." Humans do not vanish from challenges. They face them, adapt, and persevere. The two of them, human and queen, stood side by side on the bridge of the Luminaris, gazing at the stars. The galaxy, vast and endless, seemed less intimidating with courage, wisdom, and unity guiding the way. Hope had returned, stronger than ever, and in that moment, Elias understood fully why humans mattered in the galaxy, not for dominance, not for power, but for the courage, ingenuity, and heart that could change the course of history itself. The stars shone brightly above, as if celebrating the extraordinary partnership of a human and an alien queen, and the promise that wherever darkness rose, hope would follow.